Well, today I have another great video for you guys, and it's of Cenk Uygur at AmFest. Yes, AmFest, Turning Point's Charlie Kirk's AmFest event. One of the best conservative conferences that I've ever been to. And yes, Cenk actually showed up to have a civil discussion with Charlie Kirk on stage, and I couldn't believe it, but people were actually cheering him on. And you'll probably agree with much that he says, because when it comes down to people like Cenk, who are populists, us as populists on the right side simply disagree with them on the solution. We definitely agree with them on the problems of the political permanent establishment or the mainstream media that is essentially just a propaganda arm for the establishment. We agree on almost everything with Cenk on that. We just disagree in terms of how to resolve those issues. And I want to sit here and show you guys how incredible this conversation is. So let's watch how different this conversation is from the conversation they had or interaction they had just 6 years ago.
Cenk, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
So Cenk, the spirit of inviting you is that there's some confusion of these divides of right versus left, populist versus corporatist. I guess a good opening would be, as a man in the progressive movement, as one of the leaders of the progressive movement, what do you make of this last year, the state of the Democrat Party, and kind of American politics from the more progressive left perspective?
Yeah. So, first of all, I'm proud to represent the left flank of the populist movement, and I think we need both flanks, so I'm happy to have this conversation. In terms of what has gone wrong in the Democratic Party, it's the same thing that went wrong in the Republican Party, but I do have to give you guys credit for a revolution well done. And what I mean by that is not a revolution against the Democratic Party or the left or the country, but a revolution against the establishment. So I knew you guys were for real in fighting against the establishment when I started going on right-wing shows and I would say something negative about Mitch McConnell. And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do that here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
All right. Yes, I love that. So, look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there, they just booed Mitch McConnell. That's a great thing, okay? And let's do one more. What do you guys think about Dick Cheney? My left-wing friends out there, we have been waiting for the right-wing populists to boo Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney our whole lives. Take the win. Take the win. Now, what we need to do in the Democratic Party is we need to do likewise. We need to have a revolt against the Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's.
You can literally hear how crazy the crowd is going for Cenk Uygur, a leftist, literally a leftist. Why? Because he's diagnosing the problem just like we would. That's how populists approach things. We see a permanent establishment class. We see them not representing our interests as the populists, and we wish to revolt against them. We do so politically on the right. I don't know about the left, right? Ask them about their cultural revolutions and the civil war they're having. But that is why the crowd is cheering on.
And the Hillary Clintons, and now all of a sudden the Dick Cheneys. What are they doing on our side? Are you guys nuts? Right?
I have to interject. When all of a sudden Kamala Harris is doing the Liz Cheney thing, I said, does she want to lose? I mean,
what's amazing is I said the same thing. Look, Dick Cheney polls at 13%. What lunatic thought it was a good idea to wrap yourself around Dick Cheney? I mean, when we started the Young Turks 22 years ago, longest running show in internet history, first ever YouTube partner with original YouTubers, one of the driving forces was get Dick Cheney out of office, right? And now for Kamala Harris to come full circle and say, oh, I've got 90 corporate CEOs backing me, and I've got all these executives on my side, and I've got Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney on my side. It was so counterproductive. It's not what the left wing stands for. It's not what the Democratic Party should be about. So the problem is the establishment. They are controlled by the donor class, and mainstream media is their marketing arm. They do not do news. They do propaganda.
Again, that is something that you probably agree with, is that the mainstream media, whatever it is, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, or even Fox News, simply it's just the mainstream, or it's the establishment's propaganda arm to continuously propagate whatever it is that they want the party to believe in.
And one more thing, what I want you guys to recognize is that mainstream media, you think, is against you. You think they're against the right wing. But they also hate Bernie Sanders. And they also hate me. And they also hate the populists on the left. What mainstream media really loves is the establishment and the elites. They're against all of us combined. And if we dare unite on issues we agree on, they will be livid, and it'll be a beautiful day in America.
And that is correct. I mean, you were kicked off of some of the cable news channels for having heterodox opinions on certain issues. So let's kind of look at the last couple of years. We can go back to the Bernie Sanders thing. Explain to us, why is it that right-wing revolution was successful, and the Bernie Sanders with 2 attempts actually won the primary in 2016, and he had it stolen. Again, stolen election talk can be a little controversial. They stole it from Bernie Sanders in 2016. Why was that revolution not successful?
Yeah, I think it was because Donald Trump was a celebrity and they didn't take him seriously. So they made the mistake of giving him mainstream media coverage. And so they thought, and if you remember, Bill Clinton had this brilliant idea, we'll encourage Donald Trump to run on the Republican side and it'll destroy the Republican Party. How'd that work out for you, Bill? And so I remember saying at the time, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because what I sensed was you need a non-politician to lead the revolt. So, because all the politicians, and right now they're having a conversation on the Democratic side about 2028, and the only people they mention are politicians. And my answer to that is hell no. Okay? Because the politicians are used to the corruption. They grew up in the corruption. They like the corruption. They got their power through the corruption. So I don't want that. I don't need that. And so when Trump came on, they gave him coverage. And here's when look, some people think that things changed after the election. No, I've been saying this from day one. Correct. And so back in 2016, actually 2015, after I think it was the second debate, when Trump was on stage and he said, I gave all these guys money and they did exactly what I wanted. At that point, everyone on earth, certainly in establishment and mainstream media, says he has no chance of winning, none. I went on the Young Turks and I said, he's going to win the Republican primary, okay? Because people hate corruption, and they know it in their bones, okay?
Yeah, so what Cenk is doing is that he's actually outlining the success that we've had on the right when it comes down to the populist backlash that the establishment has faced in the last decade. And that is that we brought an outsider, President Trump, who essentially contested the status quo of Congress, of just the political establishment, not just Congress, the political establishment. And they're trying to do the same thing now because Cenk is realizing there's no way Democrats can actually win anything in the near future if they continue presenting political establishment candidates for whatever it is. It can be even as small as something as a House representative.
Now, we will disagree on, is Trump really not corrupt? Is Trump really going to do the things that he promised? Is he really a populist? I would love to prove me wrong. I would love that, okay? And like, my God, if Trump got money out of politics, one thing we're known for is credit where credit is due, okay? I would give him all the credit in the world. We're not there yet. We're not close to there yet. So when we get into the issues, hey, how about, and remember, guys, you also have donors. Beware of the donors. Don't forget that, and don't let your guard down, okay? But so on the Democratic side, we have got to elect a populist. If we don't, we're going to make the same mistake we made when they anointed Hillary Clinton, when they anointed Joe Biden, and when they anointed Kamala Harris. So my Democratic friends, how many times are you going to lose before you realize that mainstream media and the establishment are lying to you?
And so is that energy forefront in the Democrat Party right now? And I'm not saying this facetiously. Read us into what the power brokers of the Democrat Party are saying. Are they saying we need to run more to the middle, that we need to embrace more populism? We're hearing some of the names, but what is the vibe of the people that do this for a living?
That's actually a great question by Charlie, because it shows you where we are at right now as the right. Although there are still establishment characters in the swamp, it doesn't mean that they are actually controlling the party or forefronting the party. Every single time, especially since President Trump won the election, anytime the people had an issue with a candidate or a nominee or something like that, the party is actually listening to them and is actually using the people's conversation about that candidate to say, hey, this is what we think. So no longer do people that were establishments have control of the party. That is what Charlie's asking Cenk right now. Is they saying, is this what's currently going on in the Democrat Party? Or is there going to be more control by the populists rather than the political establishment? And we actually know that that is not what's happening, because they're not listening to the people.
Yeah, so I can tell you definitively that the Democratic leadership and the Democratic establishment will never voluntarily go in a new direction. They will never voluntarily accept populism. They are built on donor money. They are of the donors, by the donors, for the donors. So what I need left-wing voters to understand is that they're never going to give you what you want incrementally. Martin Luther King talked about the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Oh, if we just go a little further with Joe Biden, he'll give us another crumble and another tiny increment. No, they're going to just pick a new and improved corporate robot like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom, and they're going to come out with a new script, and they're going to say, I am now a populist, and they will wear flannel shirts, and they'll go to bar.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and
ribs, and then they'll sneak out and go to French Laundry, right? So don't believe the corporate robots. Remember how many times they lied to you. We need to do a populist revolt and pick a populist left-winger so we could have a real contest in this country. The establishment Democrats are never going to win. We need to go populist, and the way to do that is not by negotiating with them, it's by defeating them in a primary.
Is the Democrat grassroots, are they invigorated towards that end? Because it seemed as if they weren't obviously thrilled about Biden or Kamala Harris, but you could say whatever you want about Bernie Sanders. I have massive worldview disagreements. He had a legitimate grassroots movement behind him of small dollar donors, of people that were working, of activists. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like that has disappeared a little bit in recent years, or at least has gone to sleep. Am I correct in that? And what would it take to awaken that sleeping giant?
So there's a couple of different branches within the Democratic Party and the left, but the two most important ones are the populist progressive left, that's Bernie Sanders, and we can debate about progressive issues and policies on another day, right? But then there's the establishment wing. So the populist wing is already there. That base that was there in 2016 and 2020 still exists. And remember, guys, and I say this to you and I say it to the left wing, Bernie won the first 3 states in 2020. He was this close to winning until Obama and Clyburn called in all the candidates.
He's right.
And said, you all have to bow to Joe Biden. And then mainstream media then said, Joe Biden is the greatest. And they started talking about how Bernie Sanders, the most successful Jewish candidate in American history, had followers who were brown shirts and fascists and Nazis. Where have you heard that before? So whenever it's an outsider, all of a sudden mainstream media says fascist, even if it's a Jewish candidate, right? So they use the same tricks. And you guys have been canceled. I've been canceled. They do the same thing to both of us over and over again. So the left-wing populists are ready, but we do need some more votes from people who used to be in the establishment Democratic camp. And why were they in that camp? Because they love corruption, they love war, they love change? No, guys. They were in that camp because mainstream media lied to them. And mainstream media told them, oh, Bernie can't win. Bernie was up by 12 points on Election Day in 2016. They said, he's radical. And they called you guys radical and said you couldn't win. They call us radical and say we can't win. But they're wrong. They're lying. So what I need Democrats to understand is stop believing in Morning Joe and The View and all the garbage on TV.
Okay, so we'll leave it there. And if you want to see part 2, I'll have that coming out tomorrow. So make sure that you go and check that out. But again, like I told you guys before the clip even started, that you'll probably agree with the majority of the things that you hear Cenk saying. And that is because if you identify as somebody that's on the right, populist right, you probably share a lot of the sentiment and grievances that you hear Cenk talking about, whether it's that you've been done wrong by the establishment, that they don't hold the best interest for yourself, whether it's the mainstream media that lies to you in order to propagate a certain narrative, in order for you to fall in line with the party or whatever it is. We've all felt that. And now the left is experiencing that the same way we experienced it before Donald Trump came in. A lot of people have been calling Cenk a grifter for coming out and having these discussions with the right and going on these right-leaning shows, after all the rhetoric that he had before the election. But I don't think that he's actually grifting, because he didn't switch his position whatsoever. He'll still disagree with Charlie on the actual solutions when it comes down to the problems that he outlined. But he doesn't change whatsoever, and that's what I kind of like. And I think that we need to have more conversations like this, because the more we engage in these sort of conversations, you got to think about the audience that, or Cenk's audience that are watching this. We potentially have a chance to sway them over to our side, which is always good. That's how we win landslide elections. Thank you guys so much. As always, if you can smash that subscribe button, make sure that you like this video, share this with all your friends and family. See you tomorrow.